Okay, what I wanted to show you is exactly where these places are that we're talking about in relation to each other. So if you look at the very bottom, um, you'll see at the bottom of the map is where Jerusalem is. Can everybody see Jerusalem? Okay, so Damascus is all the way up in Syria. If you go up to about the middle, right below Lebanon, is Damascus. Okay. And then way up where that blue flag is Tarsus. Way up in Turkey is Tarsus. Now, to me, it's important to take a look at this to really get an idea of the distance Paul is covering here. Um, and by the way, when he says he went to Arabia, that would be off to the right. If you kind of look at Lebanon and then go into where kind of that deserty part, that is all kind of would be considered Arabia. So, um, so you right off the bat, you can see if Paul had left for Damascus, met Jesus on the road to Damascus, then remember, blind, he was led into Damascus. And then he goes to Tarsus. Now, if you look at that map, it doesn't make sense for him to have gone back to Jerusalem and then all the way up to Tarsus. Just physically, travel wise, it wouldn't be able to meet the timeline. I remember he's walking. Okay, they didn't have trains, planes, or automobiles, so this is all walking. So I want you to just kind of have this in your head, this map of the distances involved in travel here. Right? So basically, the way this timeline works, on the left, you'll see the year. On the very left here, you'll see the year. Then this is the kind of what's happening with Paul. And then over here, we have kind of a historical, what major historical events take place during that time. Okay. So, okay. So in around the year 5 AD, Paul is born. He's born, of course, and the scripture references are there in case you want to. We want to go and look at them, and if you do, just I'll stop, and you can let me know if you want to look at any of these. So he's born in Tarsus of Sicilia. Now, last week I said Greece, but obviously I was wrong there. It's actually Turkey. This is in what modern day Turkey. I don't know what it was back in historical times, but it's Turkey time. And of course, he's born a Roman citizen because that area was all annexed by Rome at that time. Okay. Um, history wise, it's during the time of Augustus where he adopts Tiberius. So we also learned last week that he grew up in his teenage years at the school of
Gamaliel.
Gamaliel. Okay, thank you. Gamaliel, which was, as I mentioned last week, was a famous rabbi. Apparently, he grows up and goes and gets his education in Jerusalem. Now, that I didn't know. That was something new that I learned. So he actually grows up there. Historically, Judea during this time becomes a Roman imperial province. And so here's the point of this. While Paul is in his teenage years, in his educational years, there's a lot that happens in the Roman Empire. There's Judea is conquered by Rome, is occupied by Rome while Paul was growing up there. So he's witnessing all this. Okay. And of course, there is a lot of turmoil in the Roman hierarchy, and a lot of things are happening. Okay. This is now, he's overlapping with the time of Jesus. And interestingly enough, if Paul is growing up in Jerusalem, he actually grows up alongside of Jesus. Of course, Jesus is in Bethlehem and things, and grows up in not in Jerusalem, but timing wise, they kind of grow up at the same time. Jesus is about 5 years older than Paul, but Paul joins the sect of the Pharisees, and when in his late 20s, and then he's present at Stephen's stoning there right around that same time, and he becomes a persecutor of the church. And this is the same time as John the Baptist is executed, and all the way to the crucifixion of Christ. Okay. And he kind of grows up right in the middle of that, and is when the backlash against the followers of Jesus after he's crucified, Paul is right there with that. But it's actually not very long after that, only about 4 years after the Jesus' crucifixion, that the incident on the road to Damascus happens, that he meets Jesus on the road to Damascus. This kind of surprised me in this timeline. I thought it was a lot longer time, but it's actually quite just a few years after the crucifixion of Christ that this whole incident occurs.
So in the timeline on the left, circa 32, I'm looking at President Stephen stoning. Is that 32 years after Jesus's death and resurrection, or
no, it's only
AD?
Yeah, it's only 2 years after Jesus' death and resurrection. It's 32 AD.
Okay.
Yeah. He goes to Damascus. Of course, he's blinded. He goes to Damascus. And as I said, from the map, if you picture the map in your head, it wouldn't have made any sense for him to go back to Jerusalem at this point, because he's trying to get away from both the Jews and the Christians here, who are both kind of after him. So he travels to Arabia and remains there for at least a couple of years. Then you have the imprisonment of Herod, and then he returns to Damascus. This is after the 3 years that he's gone to both Arabia and Damascus. And then he goes to Jerusalem before he goes to Tarsus. And this is the encounter in Jerusalem where he only meets with James. Okay. Where the elders of the church and the leaders of the church are still suspicious of him. James does see him, and but he actually winds up having to escape Jerusalem, and he's helped to escape by some of the people who do trust him. He's helped to escape, and he goes all the way to Tarsus. Now remember, that's quite a journey. Okay, that's goes all the way up to Turkey. What's modern day Turkey? He goes to Tarsus. Caligula is a tyrant, an absolute tyrant. He is. He's the one that he's only second to Nero. Remember Nero? Yeah, Caligula is also a really bad guy, and gives the it actually is he is under him. A lot of the Christians in Jerusalem are scattered throughout the world because of the persecution that's so high. So that's the significance of Caligula. When he goes back to Tarsus, he's actually there 8 years before Barnabas comes and picks him up. Now, we've got all kinds of historical events that happen in those 8 years. If you look on the right, okay, Caligula is murdered. Claudius is declared emperor. Romans set their mind on the north, okay? And that's the thing about Claudius. Interesting thing, a little history lesson here. Claudius is just the opposite of Caligula. He is more of a he stops a lot of this persecution, and he actually, under his reign, Rome kind of turns their attention to the north, and Judea and the south of Rome is kind of given a break for a while during his reign. And this is actually the historically important, because this Claudius takes over. There is the church also booms. It's the early church boom that we see. Okay, is during this time, and the church, and it also gives Paul the freedom to start his ministry, his missionary journey, which he couldn't have done under probably if Caligula was still there, it would have never happened. He would have never had the freedom to do it. But under Claudius, he did have the freedom. And then, so going back to this, and if you remember, Barnabas gets sent to Tarsus, and to find Paul, and then they immediately go to Antioch from there, and to start ministering in Antioch. And remember that that's where Christians are first called Christians, was in Antioch. So, and they start their first missionary journey from Antioch. So now you notice on the right, it's very quiet. Okay, the reign of Claudius was very quiet. There weren't a lot of war. He was a more peaceful emperor. There weren't a lot of wars, except up in England and Germany and those areas called Gaul. And there was a lot of stuff happening there, but nothing down south, and nothing in the Arabian Peninsula, to where the church was able to thrive and Paul was able to minister freely. Okay, so then in the year 49, they go up. That's when they return to Jerusalem, and that's the 10-year span that we talked about last week. It's a full 10 years before he returns to Jerusalem from the time he's there the first time, or even longer. What is it? It's now the year 49, and it was 35. So it's actually more like 13, 14 years since that time. So this is quite a long time span. And this is where he goes with Barnabas back to Jerusalem. He's received now by the elders of the church, and he's warmly received by the leadership there. And they straighten out the issue with the Jews putting burdens on the new Christians. They straighten that out. Okay. Hi. Hello, friends. Editor Kurt here. Just wanted to let you know that at this point, we basically finished just talking about the timeline as far as the 3 missionary journeys and Paul's return to Rome. Now, I'm not going to put that in this blog because we're going to cover each of those events in separate sessions. We'll have one for the first, second, and third missionary journey, and then we're going to talk about Paul's trip to his final trip to Rome. So I don't need to put it in here now because it'll be repetitive. And also there were some technical issues going forward in the blog at this time. So we're going to go ahead and close it here for today. I want to thank you for joining us. And if you're watching this on replay or on YouTube, please know that you're welcome to join the live discussion anytime. Simply email me at kurt.close@calvaryalameda.org. The email address is down here below. And let me know that you'd like to join the discussion, and I'll send you the link to join up. It's Tuesdays, 6:30 to 7:30 Pacific Standard Times, and no matter where you are, you're welcome to join us. Okay? So I look forward to having some of you come to the live discussion. For now, I'm going to close it here, and there will not be a blog next week, and then we're going to continue in August, in the first Tuesday of August, or for the blog, the first Thursday in August. Okay. You have a great rest of the day, and we'll see you next time. God bless.